You're watching Young Turks, the show that puts the spotlight on two young achievers. I'm Shireen Bhan. You're watching the Young Turks Dream Deck marks the beginning of our 11th year. We turned 12. For 13 years, we brought you some of India's hottest entrepreneurial stories.
On stage in front of about 500 odd people said that I was the universal mother for Young Turks. Now, I should have been upset, but I really wasn't, because I feel a strong connection with the people that have been featured on this show.
Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's largest startup platform and longest running show. I'm Shireen Bhan. It has been exciting and gratifying to chronicle the story of India's startup universe over the past 20 years. Yes, we have turned 20, which makes us the longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. Now, over the last 2 decades, Young Turks has unfailingly captured the rise of India's first generation entrepreneurs. No storied backgrounds or deep pockets, but full of audacity to build internet businesses relevant for a post-liberalization, mobile-first generation of India. And the growth has been exponential. The Indian startup ecosystem is currently valued at a whopping $400 billion, and the country is now home to over 65,000 startups. From just 8 unicorns in the 5-year period of 2011 to 2015, India has minted a record 44 unicorns in 2021, and in 2022 we're already adding $16 billion startups to the tally. But winter is coming. The era of being rewarded for hypergrowth at any cost is quickly coming to an end. Investors are shifting their focus towards companies who can demonstrate profitability in the here and now. For many young founders, this could be their first downturn. So we decided to assemble a special lineup which will not just dig into the rich archives of Young Turks to recap the journey of India's biggest startup founders and investors. Their learnings will also hold us in good stead as we chart out an action plan to cope with the current challenging environment. Well, joining me on this very special episode to discuss the past, present and the future of the Indian startup ecosystem is Sanjeev Aggrawal, the co-founder of Helion Venture Partners and Fundamentum Partnership, and Nitish Mittersain, the founder of India's first gaming company to list on the stock exchanges, Nazara Technologies. Well, before we begin, here's a quick look at their journey on Young Turks.
We have to celebrate this next round of entrepreneurs. In 2000s, people like Hitesh and Raman and Sanjeev and all of us started these companies.
And yourself, yes. He's being extremely modest.
with grey hair. And now I think we have this 25 years old who are creating very interesting assets. If you saw the internet euphoria in 2000, that was very investor driven. But this time there is a groundswell of demand.
100 million subscribers.
100 million subscribers gives a very large available market. So when 100 million goes to 300 million and number of people who shop goes from 4 to 40, we are going to see many billion-dollar assets emerge. Every time a company crosses about $50 million in revenue, if it's a tech company, it can be listed for $300–400 million, which is an exitable size on NASDAQ. I still feel that on Indian bourses, you need to be a very profitable company, which Sanjeev's company was, which will not be the case for most
of these.
I would say entrepreneurs should try to raise money in small tranches and show enough progress before they go in for next round of financing. Too many entrepreneurs are raising too much money upfront. Putting money is easier. Taking it back is much harder. We are betting on our entrepreneurs who are long-distance runners. Because India, as I said during our conference, is a great startup nation, but India is still an unproven scale-up nation. So when we try to grow rapidly, the wheels are coming off.
Around in 1999 or 2000, that's when the dot-coms were becoming very popular. I was studying in a college. It didn't require much attendance, and I had a lot of free time. Therefore, I set up this website, which was supposed to be entertainment oriented. So we were doing we had a radio channel on the web. We had a lot of Bollywood content. We had a lot of online gaming. But I think the market was not mature enough at that point of time. We had assembled an excellent team with a lot of expertise in online gaming when we were doing the website work. We diversified the same company into this business. We started working with Indian operators over here, doing stuff on SMS back in 2002. Simple things like, you could play games on SMS, you could chat with other people on SMS. So we set that up, and since then, this is a business that has been really taking off, not only in India, but worldwide. In India specifically, it is not yet mature. It's difficult for game studios like ours to sustain themselves only from the Indian market point of view. Okay. But the market is growing very rapidly, okay. And I think we're at a point where in the next 1 year or so, you're going to see maybe a 5 or 10 times growth. I started the company in 99-2000. I saw the whole dot-com crash really close and upfront, right? And what happened. And my biggest learning there was, do not start a company only on the basis of hype or basis of investor appetite, because that can change very quickly. And if your business does not have fundamentals, if it is not generating cash, if it's just burning money, then you can fall off the cliff very fast, right? And that's why since then, the focus has been in building a strong, profitable business. I was featured on Young Turks in sometime in late 2004 or early 2005. And the next morning, this show broadcasted in the evening, and next morning I had a note on my table saying, there was a call from Sandeep at Westbridge, and I called him back. And he had seen me on TV and he wanted to learn more about Nazara and what we were doing. So of course, you really played a matchmaking role for us, and it's been a great journey thereafter, the next 15 years.
Well, that is a walk down memory lane with Sanjeev Aggrawal and Nitish Mittersain. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us on this very special episode of Young Turks. It's great to have you back. And thank you so much for being part of the Young Turks journey over the past 2 decades. Sanjeev Aggrawal, let me start by asking you, I remember the first interview that I did with you was when the IBM Daksh deal had just gone through, and that was, I think, 2004. And since then, you've really been a part of the Young Turks journey year after year. I want to understand from you, over the past 2 decades, what to your mind have been the most defining moments of the Indian startup ecosystem through your journey and through the evolution of the startup universe as well?
Shireen, I think the event that pops up in my mind is the advent of Jio, where the internet bandwidth at a very affordable cost was made available to masses. And actually that changed the entire game on internet commerce. So that to me is one defining moment. The other one, I can't figure out the time really well, but the other big change has been the aspirations. When we were building companies, $100 million company was seen like a prize. And today, folks are building $10 billion companies and have insatiable appetite to keep going on.
Nitish, thanks very much. You were on Young Turks way back in 2005. As I said, so much has changed from feature phones to hairdos. Do you still play the saxophone though, Nitish?
Very much so. Every weekend.
Every weekend. That's great to hear. But Nitish, I want to understand from you. You know, you were one of the first few companies in the gaming space in India, and today, gaming has become an industry by itself. There are, of course, regulatory uncertainties and regulatory headwinds at this point in time. But what for you have been the most defining moments over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, sure. I think, speaking for myself and the industry I worked in, one important defining moment was, the advent of data-enabled phones that were available. For me, the big moment was when I got a Nokia Series 60 in my hand and saw what it could really do, right? So I'm talking of early 2000s. I think even going a little bit before that, 97, 98, the big 500 crore sale of India World to Satyam was something that really electrified, the startup, the initial startup, boom really happened then. And I remember waking up to the newspapers with that headline and just being amazed. I think these two things stand out for me. Besides, of course, in a long journey of over 20 years, there's so many milestones that we crossed.
Yes, there are many milestones that we have crossed. But Sanjeev, I want to come back again to the point that you made. And I think while we have seen a lot change over the past 2 decades, I think, if I were to point out the big change and the big inflection point that we've seen in the ecosystem, perhaps a decade or more importantly, about 5 to 7 years on, what we have seen is the not just companies being able to start up, but companies being able to scale up. Now, I remember when you were joining me on the program at the Young Turks Conclave in 2018, you very clearly said that we're a great startup nation, but we're still an unproven scale-up nation. How much has changed on that front today?
I think Shireen, an entrepreneur of, let's say, early 2000, was really all about growth at any cost. I think today's day and age, smart entrepreneurs are driving 3 concurrent engines, which is namely growth, efficiency, and foundation. So growth with healthy unit economics, I think, is a mantra that will lead to building sustainable companies. And that change is very clear. Now there are clear revenue models and paths to profitability versus pure eyeballs, which is what we saw in early 2000, because there was no way to monetize. So the caliber of entrepreneurs that are coming in today are a lot more rounded. They surround themselves with good caliber CFOs, CHROs,